I think we might have Erin Taylor from the Wyoming Lottery Board on the phone. News Talk 1270, KIML. You're on the air.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. This is Erin then, right?
This is Erin. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for calling in. I was actually going back and looking through my email to make sure you guys had the number. I didn't remember if I sent the number to you, but I want to thank you for calling and talking to us today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. That's for sure. It's an exciting thing to be a part of right now, so I'm really happy to visit with you about it.
Yeah, you've had a busy couple of days, I understand.
We sure did. Yes, we did. And it has been that way for about a week now, since July 1st.
So give us a little bit of a background about why you guys couldn't actually start planning anything until after July 1st. I mean, the law went into effect July 1st. So I understand you couldn't even meet and talk to anybody until then, right?
That's correct. The legislation went into effect July 1st, and the legislation specifically mentions that the governor will appoint a board, a corporation, and they will start their work on that date. And so it was announced on that date, and that's really when we hit the ground running.
Okay, so how did you end up on the state lottery board then? I mean, is this something that you've had an interest in, or did they come to you, or how did that happen?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I really had no involvement with the lottery bill in any way, shape, or form, either professionally or personally, other than that I was really interested. And I know some folks applied to be on the board or expressed interest. Others were chosen for their talents and whatnot, and I was kind of in that latter boat. But I've watched the process just due to the nature of my work. I've seen the bill being debated for the last 12 years, literally, and so I've really seen the progress on how it's moved and how it's evolved and how the supporters have changed or not and how the issues have morphed over the years. So it's been really good in that I have that experience.
Now, when I first moved out here and I saw this, I mean, I just assumed that Wyoming had a lottery. I mean, I'm not a big lottery player, but when I actually saw that this bill went into effect, the first thing that I thought was, what, Wyoming didn't have a lottery in the first place? I mean, why didn't Wyoming have one when I think pretty much every other state in the country don't they?
Well, we're the 44th state, Don, to implement one, and so it's an exciting time for those folks who are specialize in this to come out here and share their experiences with us. But to your question, I'm not sure if I can really say. It's a big step. There are a lot of folks out there who are concerned with the types of lotteries that are out there, and I think that, and just from my own personal opinion, in that folks are concerned with the ability for folks to get addictive behaviors, things like that. If you have instant gratification, I know those were some of the arguments over the years, and so it just took a lot of work and a lot of education on anything like this to really talk to folks about it, and just finding the right model. And I think that the model that passed this year really was a good fit for our state, and obviously it had the support of the majority of the legislators, and so there's been a lot of homework done, Dawn, and I think that's really what serves everyone best and our job for moving forward.
Well, and you do have the experiences of all the other states that have done this before to kind of draw upon. I mean, what kind of response have you seen from maybe some other states that might be able to kind of guide us? Because I mean, this is kind of looks like it's going to be a pretty short thing. I mean, you're looking to start up in January, so you're really going to probably need a little bit of outside help, I'd imagine.
Well, that's the good news, is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel on virtually any part of this. We are unique in that we are a quasi-state agency or instrumentality of the state, but we operate like a corporation. We are not supposed to operate, and we are not set up to be an arm of the state. But we have some sort of arm's length relationship to that. No funding from the state, and some other lotteries have been set up like that. And so we've been able to. Georgia's a good example. Our this legislation was modeled after Georgia, was modeled after Tennessee, and so it's great to go with the folks who started up that Georgia lottery, and talk with them, and they've been so helpful. It's really a pretty small community in that professional world, and these folks have been more than happy to help us, give us resources. This is who you should call, this is who you should talk to about that. It's been really, really encouraging.
So what I mean, I don't know if you've decided yet, what it's going to look like. Is it going to be a state lottery plus Powerball Mega Millions, or is it going to be just Powerball Mega Millions? Have you decided any of that yet?
You know what, Don, we haven't. We are literally taking the first steps of figuring out what we need to do, what our to-do list is. The legislation gives us the options to look at a multi-state lottery, and the language says, or a state lottery. No scratch tickets at all. So it can be, one of those sorts of models. And we are literally at the point of just hearing from the vendors to just see what services they can offer for us. We haven't really even hit what types of games would be best.
Also, so there's no room in the legislation for any kind of instant lottery tickets. It's just going to be some kind of numbers drawing then. It's
only draw games. That's correct.
Okay, and is there any talk of maybe expanding that in the future to video lottery like South Dakota has?
There is something in the bill that specifically prohibits any sort of personal contact with a machine right now as it's written. And really that's our roadmap right now, Don. We are not even discussing changing this legislation in any way. Our job is to just implement it as it's written.
Right.
Yep.
And now the funding that comes in, where is that going to go?
The bill specifies that the first $6 million of net proceeds does go to the local communities, so that's cities, towns, and counties. And then after that, the monies flow into the permanent land fund that supports the school foundation program. So it's the interest-bearing account that supports our schools.
Okay, and a lot of other states have things set up for the schools as well. That most lotteries seem to either benefit retirees or schools. So I guess. So this is kind of a two-tiered thing. The first $6 million, like you said, is going to the communities. Is that something that's unique?
Well, all states have different funding mechanisms. A portion of Colorado's goes to their state parks, for instance. They're really kind of all over the place. Schools definitely seems to be a popular destination for those dollars. So I'm not exactly sure, because I think they're all a little bit different in that, and that is certainly the legislature's prerogative to look at that, and I expect that will be a subject of debate for years to come.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
And what kind of revenue are you looking to? Are you projecting for this to start off?
Well, we haven't done any projections. Folks who are in the business have said that you have to look at kind of our population and those sorts of factors, and they're really looking at us to be similar to North Dakota. They have a few more people than we do, and they only have a draw system like we're looking at, and so they're saying that we could potentially bring in up to $24 million in North Dakota total, with $6 million the net proceeds. But I don't know. I'm not going to say that those are the numbers, because frankly we don't know.
Right.
We really don't know.
And and you can kind of look at other states and kind of scale it to the size of Wyoming, but I guess until you've actually seen it in practice and people kind of catch on that it's something that they can do, it's kind of hard to judge, I'd imagine.
It's very hard to judge, but that is the beauty of looking to the other states. When we were visiting with the folks who would come and implement the infrastructure and whatnot, we really have to consider things like weather and our climate out here, and so we're looking to how other states have put their systems in, what sorts of communication systems they use. All of those things factor in, because you want a system that is reliable, that ultimately will give you the most success. And so those are all the little factors that we have to look at.
Sure. So what's the next step for the lottery board then?
Well, we have a lot of committees that we established. We did vote on leadership. A chairman, a vice chairman, a treasurer, a secretary. We did decide that the office will be housed in Cheyenne, and so we have folks who are looking at things like that. But the first step is we need to hire a CEO.
Yeah, and actually, I was looking at a story. I guess there's a little bit of a point of contention about how much the CEO is going to make, and I mean, since this is going to be enacted in such a short manner, I guess the argument is that the CEO needs to be somebody with experience. Well,
I think experience is really what we need. Starting up a lottery is something that's so unique, and as we learned from the folks who came to visit with us, there aren't a lot of people who've started up lotteries. So I think we are writing a job description. That's really the step one. We need to secure financing. That's actually probably step one. But we need to write up a job description. We're right now just thinking about those qualities that we want in that CEO, and so nothing is set in stone yet, but it will be happening very quickly.
Now, you mentioned there aren't really a whole lot of people that have started up lotteries. I mean, do you have anybody in mind that is even available?
I don't know if we do. I think that even since the bill was enacted, I know folks have been contacted to say, hey, I'm interested. And I believe, the governor's office has had people call, and I'm certain now that folks in the business know that we're up and running. I'm certain that folks will be calling too. So it'll be just interesting to see, and I know we've got talented people here. We'll have a lot of folks who are interested in this, I imagine.
Sure. And the other thing that you mentioned was that this isn't going to involve any tax dollars, and especially in Wyoming, it seems like people are really, really touchy about that subject. So where are you going to get the financing to kind of get things started then?
Well, that was, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why this did eventually pass, is because they said, all right, we're not going to give any appropriations, no state money to start this up. And that's where people said, okay, we're going to talk to banks and figure out what kind of financing that we can work out with them, and that'll be how we move forward.
Sure.
So we're putting together RFPs for things like that right now.
So, and I guess the plans are also underway to kind of implement the electronics and physical part of getting the equipment into the retailers. Where are the people going to be able to actually buy lottery tickets at?
Well, that is something that we also have the prerogative to decide in rules and regulations, is what sorts of retailers can qualify, what the process is, how do they apply. Of course, because of the nature of the lottery, there's a series of security, background checks, things like that, that the retailers will have to go through. And so that's on the to-do list, is to make that list of qualities we want to see in the retailers, and then what the process will be and how they can apply. So we're not sure yet.
Okay, so I guess it's...
How's that? I'm going to say that a lot, because we're just not sure. We just know we've got a big job ahead of us and a long to-do list. But it's doable, and the last 2 days were really great. It's a really, really great group of people with very, very special talents and dynamic personalities. And they're all really folks who are willing to jump in and say, "Yep, I'll take care of that." And so I think folks are going to be really happy with this group, because we just have the best interest of the state in mind with going forward with this. Yeah,
I looked at the list, and there's a little bit of everything. You have a lawyer, you have someone from law enforcement, you have a radio guy. You really do have kind of someone from every walk of life that can kind of give varying perspectives on how this should be done.
And that was really neat. You're right. That was really neat when we were working our way through the last 2 days, because it almost was a natural fit to turn to our attorney to say, hey, can you can you spearhead this group with writing an RFP for the legal counsel or things like that? And same with the fellow who was a former banker and our CPA and things like that. So it just is a natural fit for a lot of the talents that we have. And I think, I really give kudos to the governor and his folks who really worked hard to make sure that we had the right mix of people.
Yeah, and I mean, I moved here from Delaware, so I'm used to the state lottery, and I mean, they actually own the casinos in Delaware. I mean, the State Lottery Commission owns the casinos, and the state actually had to bail out casinos. I've never heard of a casino that lost money, but apparently the casinos in Delaware are losing so much money they needed a state bailout. It's kind of refreshing to see that, here in Wyoming, that things are running a lot more smoothly. Well,
they certainly are, for a number of fronts. And, of course, with my day job, I know that, very well with the revenue situation and the tax situation. But what we've learned from other startups in the recent years, the last one was 3 years ago, so they're not happening every year like they were for a while there. But the last few startups, while they borrowed X amount of money, they paid it back in very, very short time. And so what we've seen is a certain level of success that gives us, some confidence that we will enjoy the same success here. Yeah,
and it seems, it seems like, maybe the time that it took to kind of put things together over what you said, I think it was 12 years or something like that it took to get this passed. Maybe that kind of helped kind of craft it into something that'll be a little bit more solid than maybe some of the other states have done.
Well, and that could be the case. That's for sure. In my opinion, when you're not the first one to break the mold, you do benefit from the successes and the failures of what other states have experienced, and you can learn from those lessons and take from the best practices and implement those in your state. And I really have to give kudos to those legislators because it took a lot of work to look at those other states, study it, and work with those folks to figure out what did work. And I think that House Bill 77 that we have to work with really gives us a really good roadmap for moving forward. So I would really want to say thank you to those folks who worked on that.
Yeah, it is kind of encouraging to see things done right instead of done fast. I mean, I think it's kind of a hallmark of how things are done in Wyoming. It really is. It's encouraging to see that.
I agree.
So I want to thank you. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you're pretty busy with all this and your day job. I'm sure we'll probably talk to you again sometime soon, either about this or about taxes. We'll keep in touch because you're always a good source of information.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm always happy to visit. This group of folks on this board particularly are all very willing to visit as well, and so it might be fun to get other perspectives too for the show. But you can call me anytime.
Oh, absolutely, and like I said, I mean, you have my email, so definitely, if anybody wants to come in and talk about it, they're more than welcome.
That sounds great. Well, I appreciate it, and you have yourself a good day.
Thanks a lot, Erin, and that was Erin Taylor. We'll see you next time coming through. Erin Taylor from the State Lottery Board, News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll be right back.
For the latest on the show, follow Don on Twitter @TheDonCarpenter. News Talk 1270, KIML.